can we think collectively, innovatively, a new way to go?
Hi, Mary Jane. We certainly can. Now, I know you put this up 3 days ago. I was waiting till I got a bit of time to talk about things. But first of all, I'm going to go through what we have and have tried. Now, this kind of half arseways diagram that I put up with is kind of what we have now, capitalist democracy. Now, this is how we are told things are, that we have, we'll say, for example, now the corporations here and their wealth and power trickles down to the government and then the, in quotation, middle class, kind of middle management, whatever else have you, then down to us, the general working class. Now, while it may be true that, the corporations are up here, right? But what actually happens is that even though the population is here, the wealth and power gets trickled up to the top here. Instead of them having a small slice of the pie up here, they have the bulk of it. So instead of wealth trickling down, which is the excuse that we've been given for a very long time about, support financially and otherwise for corporations, if we feed it up here, it'll trickle down to everyone else. What actually is happening is that we've a wealth exchange. The people here at the bottom, which is us, are getting that much of a share instead of the instead of the share that we should be having, given the size of us. So what happens instead is instead of wealth trickling down, wealth is being filtered upwards. And that goes for political power as well. And as well as that, between us and the ones who have the majority of the wealth, you have the state, which essentially functions just to protect those and themselves from us. Underneath them, you have, your middle management, you have your Gardaí, your, we'll say, vestiges of the apparatus of the state. They're here protecting the governance from us. So they protect the governance from us. The governance protect the corporations, billionaires, in other words, capitalists from us in turn, and as well as these if they were to ever turn with us. That's kind of the whole situation that we currently have, regardless of space. This then is, and I know that I'm going to get, rather than actually helping me argue against the far right when they turn up, I'm going to get a whole heap of people arguing with me about my representation of Soviet-era Marxism-Leninism here. Right, how it's advertised is essentially, right, well, lads, we're going to get rid of the capitalist class. We are going to be here, us and, the other apparatus of the state, the kind of good comrades, managers are going to help administer ye. We're going to get rid of the capitalist class, but keep the apparatus of the state and the general kind of, we'll say, structure of it and use it to the benefit of the workers who are down here. And that may have happened for a time, under Lenin, when he had the labour councils and so on and so forth. But that was quickly undone later on by Stalin. A lot of the labour council type stuff was gotten rid of and things started to be administered far more directly. So what you ended up having here is the share of, we'll say the capitalist class, and that ended up becoming state companies and getting incorporated in with the state, and that's here, which was, to be, things were an awful lot more equal than what they were in some parts of the West at the time. Like, for example, my ex was from the Czech Republic, and his mother was the same age, but they'd have been, his mother and my mother would have been knocking around, they were born in the early 50s, and they'd have been knocking around in the 60s. And, it was nearly hilarious listening to his mother complain, because things were actually far worse in rural Ireland than they were in urban Czech Republic in the same time period. So, so what essentially you ended up having was, yes, the ordinary average peasant worker had a greater share of things than what they had afterwards, and what they had, what they had previously under the Tsars type stuff. But you have this band of, we'll say, state kind of, we'll say, your police, your whatever, and your managers of the, the collective whatever, kind of keeping a bit of a distance between the state, who now has both the place of the corporation and the place of the state in the current system, keeping them safe from any kind of, we'll say, rebellion from down here. Now, in other theoretical forms of, we'll say, or other forms of straight anarchism, because, I'm a syndicalist, I'm going to spend the most of this video on syndicalism. What you have is, say, commune, guild, collective, whatever. They're all they're all their own independent thing running off, not very much organised, with a little interweb of mutual aid, free association kind of interlinks. They're all kind of, we'll say, like little islands with boat routes between them. That's how society would be kind of organised in a lot of different forms of anarchism. Essentially, we'll say you and me and whoever are over here in our little commune, doing whatever, producing whatever it is, and we trade with this guild here, that commune there, that guild up there, that kind of thing. But we largely do our own thing, kind of on the basis of mutual aid and free association. This then is syndicalism and anarcho-syndicalism, which is my political tendency. Now, what you essentially have is you have a Boers Drew Travail / Labour Council here in the middle, kind of, we'll say, helping all the different spokes to organise and work with each other. This would all be done it is as close as you could feasibly get to direct democracy. It is really a form of direct democracy. So then for the spokes, these are just examples, like you'd have regional areas who would be kind of self-administering. Like, for example, the 4 provinces plus Dublin. I personally think Dublin should be its own province, just because of the population and the level of GDP. They're equal to or greater than an entire province all to their own. So, to be kind of along the same lines as the Aranua type thought, but we want, 5, Dublin, the greater Dublin area. You'd be talking about, isn't you, bringing Meath back, but including Dublin. So you'd have Dublin, Ulster, Connacht, Leinster, Munster. There'll be way more spokes than this in it. It's just as much as I can do on a copybook in a very short period of time. You'd have your different rights groups, but there'd be kind of different spokes for different rights groups. Your media, your energy, your fuel, your water, your forestry, your transport, your housing, your defence, your food, your agriculture, your trades and crafts. And then we're back again, like all different. Essentially, the idea of it is now there'll be a way more industries than this in it. Like, this wheel would have to be huge, and I've only a small copybook, and I need to make it able to be read, in a video. But you'd have all of your different, we'll say, different sections of society, different regions, and different, industries, which would be worker-owned and administered, kind of similar to, just to explain it layly, it'd be very similar to essentially having all of your industry cooperativized and unionised, and all of your, and much more localism with regards to governance, but also, kind of things administered in kind of a direct democratic way. And all what you'd have in place of a parliament would be the Labour Council as an overall thing, which would essentially say, for example, if agriculture and food are having an argument about price, they can both come in here and have a chat about it, and there'd be negotiations with input from various different stakeholders within, we would like to eat. We understand that you need, a few bob more for your product. Can we come up with a compromise here? It would be kind of along the same lines of the kind of negotiation that would go on in a Congress of Trade Unions, or would go on, in other kind of various things. But the major key is that you're reducing the apparatus of the state down to very petty functions, bringing it to the same level as the general population, that everyone gets a say. The kind of idea of it is if everyone is in power, no one is. If we are all have our own say and our own spoke within what we do, and within, how the country is run, there's no concentration of power. Now, this wheel type graph actually comes from, there's a thing called the Father Hegarty's wheel. Father Hegarty, he was a syndicalist organiser in the United States, with the IWW. And he came up with a wheel that showed how all of different union sections, at the time there was only specific, we'll say, unions for specific trades and things like that, how different sections of different unions, can work together within the one great union, the one big union, and that all of the sections have equal, we'll say, importance, and all of the sections have equal say within things. But essentially, like it's like the kind of negotiation space is like the hub of the wheel that draws the spokes together. But you know, like a wheel is nothing without both its spokes and its hub. And, you know, all of them together in a collective is like, you know, the wheel turning the, you know, on the rim. So basically, things can be separate, have their own independent